Welcome to Reflections and the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. I'm your host, Julie Stark, and today we're talking about a subject that is often overlooked in discussions around health and well-being, namely water. As with most things, Mr. Cayce was ahead of his time, and he believed that everything in the universe was due to motion and vibration. In fact, he said, sounds, music, and color may have much to do with creating the proper vibrations in individuals that are mentally unbalanced, physically deficient, or ill in body and mind. Many of those healing elements of sound and vibration can be found in the outdoors, and Edgar Cayce was a big believer in our connection to nature. In fact, he said, in all nature, the spirit of creation is emanating. In a 1943 reading, Edgar Cayce said, "Whatever choice is made, let the activity have to do with being in the open and having to do with the elements, air, water, earth." In another reading, a recipient asked, "Are we one with the flowers of the field, the waves of the sea, the breath of the forest, with all mankind? Is this all true?" And Edgar Cayce responded, "That is all true." To talk about that truth today, our guest is Dr. Wallace J. Nichols. He's a scientist, a marine biologist, and the author of the landmark best-selling book, Blue Mind, the surprising science that shows how being near, in, on, or underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. So, Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, it's so good to see you, my friend. It's been a while.
Likewise. Definitely good to see you.
I assume you're zooming in from California.
I am on the Monterey Bay right now, and just behind your head on my screen is, in fact, the Monterey Bay. So,
well, I will tell you that we are here live at the Edgar Cayce A.R.E. headquarters in Virginia Beach, half a block off the ocean front. A little tidbit of information: in the 1920s, when Cayce was looking for a place to put his headquarters, build a hospital eventually, he was told to do it by a large body of water. I think the listeners will understand why that makes sense as our conversation goes on. I know your friends call you Jay, and I am definitely your friend, so I will use that familiar name. And I know you well. We've done a lot of work together over the last decade in the ocean advocacy space. And there's a lot of things I'd like people to know about you, but I'll have to focus on just one thing that, other than you being a scientist and a marine biologist and a best-selling author, that has always stood out for me personally. And that is your utmost dedication to bringing you really unique approaches to making things common knowledge. I know you've done it with turtles, you've done it with your slow coast home where you live in California, and you've done it with a landmark best-selling book called Blue Mind that really examines our brain on water. So that's what we really want to focus in on today. I mean, I know we could talk for hours about a lot of work you do in the world, but talk to us about Blue Mind and what that is and how it relates to us today.
Yeah, so we could talk for weeks about sea turtles, but let's focus on Blue Mind here.
And you would like that?
Yes, I would love it. For all the sea turtle lovers out there, sorry to disappoint, but we're going to talk about Blue Mind. Well, so this phrase Blue Mind it's just a phrase that refers to something that's very familiar, and even where you're sitting and the siting of the location is based on Blue Mind. The idea that you should build a center for healing by the water is an ancient idea. It's an idea that connects all cultural and spiritual traditions for all of human history. And so I just put a name to it, a simple name that kind of has stuck. And Blue Mind refers to that emotional well-being that we sense when we're near, in, on, or underwater. And it's a mildly meditative state. It helps us get into deeper meditative states. It calms us, it centers us, it connects us to each other, it connects us to our planet. it boosts our creativity, and it boosts our compassion. So that's a heavy lift, but the water can do all of that. It really can. And the science is bearing that out. So as is often the case, spiritual traditions often precede the science in many cases. Insights of people who sit and think deeply often are borne out by the people who take those ideas into the laboratories. Not always, but it seems to be a pattern.
Right.
And so this is another case of that, where the people who sat and thought long and hard and said, wow, water is special. It has a spiritual component. The science is bearing that out. And it's telling us that, yeah, when you sit in the water, it puts you into a different mind state, which is extremely healthy, and connects us and builds all these things that I've described.
Well, I happen to know that when you started on this quest, well, you probably started on this quest long before it came to my awareness, but I know that there is a lot of talk in the ocean advocacy world, and you'd spent a lot of time in that world. A lot of the conversation was centered around, fear, and there's a space for that. There's a space for people to be very afraid about what's happening to our planet, but that is not the space that Blue Mind elected to be the filter for. And that space was love, and based on developing an emotional connection to the water, right? Oh, there you go. Perfect. I love it. And in another language, of course. Exactly. Well, that's it, right? So we're choosing, and you're choosing, to have this conversation about water and what it means to us through this lens of love and the emotional value. I know you often say that in the circles, and I'm not negating those circles, because they're really important and they've got a space, and they do beautiful work out there. But in your conversations, you're really talking about how water has been undervalued, and we look at the economic benefits of it and the environmental problems, and we look at even, educational aspects of water, but we never really talk about the significant emotional value of water. So, when you mention it's been, indigenous cultures or spiritual cultures for centuries and thousands of years have seen that. We're now just beginning to have that conversation. So instinctively, people know this, right? And so talk about this cognitive, emotional, social, psychological benefits of healthy water and what it can do for us.
Yeah, so there's really, I think, some real clear reasons why academia and sort of mainstream agencies sort of dialed this out. Mm-hmm. And lots of good reasons we're dialing it back in. But the emotional component of life was downvalued or undervalued. And that created some problems. As a result, we undervalued the oceans because we had an incomplete story of what the oceans did for us. You mentioned the ecological and economic value, incredibly important, and the educational value, but we left out the emotional value. And then we did that for lakes, and we did it for rivers, and we did it for bathtubs, and we did it for swimming pools. And so an underappreciation of the cognitive, emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual health and well-being benefits of all of these kinds of water. And I think a fundamental concept is that when we undervalue anyone or anything, bad stuff happens. History shows that to be true, and current history and deeper history. Every time we undervalue each other, and anytime we undervalue our nature, bad stuff happens. And so part of the conversation in the circle that we're building is, how do we fix that value equation? And not just in monetary terms, but in all ways, all the ways we value each other, all the ways we value the world.
Yeah.
And so the conversation is really trying to do that. And it takes everybody. And when we say everybody, we really mean everybody, 8 billion people or so and growing. And, bringing the science, but bringing the anecdotes, bringing the personal experiences, bringing the cultural and spiritual traditions that we've talked about to the table, and fixing that value equation, which then changes policy, changes behaviors, and changes the outcomes. So we start to see a community values their waterfront more. So they fix it up, they clean it up. Kids start going to the waterfront. Kids start getting in boats and learning to swim. They become happier and healthier and more connected and better at what they do.
Right.
And then the community gets better. And we're seeing that happening right now, literally. We're seeing Blue Mind in action in communities, creating just healthier lives. And then that leads to solving bigger other problems. When you're feeling healthy, when you're feeling creative, you're open to solving the other challenging problems. And so that's kind of the dynamic. It's a regenerative feedback loop, you could say.
Yeah, that's really quite important. And I know the more people that talk about their connection or the things that they value that aren't the norm, whatever that may be. I mean, even, caregivers in this time of the last couple of years of what we've had to go through have been given much more value than we ever have. And I think that's important to bring to the water conversation, is this idea of value. And the more we have people like Pharrell Williams talking about how water is muse for creativity when he's in the shower, or Oliver Sacks swimming in the swimming pool and having a notebook beside the pool, or Heroes on the Water, Operation Surf, having great success working with vets to help them overcome traumas and PTS and many things that they may be dealing with. I think we'll see even more and more ways that that's successful in today's environment to help us all gain mental wellness and emotional health. So I think that the idea of neuroscience has really been kind of a hot subject over the last decade or so, and you really brought that to bear on this subject. And I know you and I have often sort of lamented the fact that, Blue Mind creates a state of mind that's much like meditation or mindfulness, which is also becoming more mainstream, and that there are countless books on the shelves on the subject that have water on the front cover, but none of them talk about water on the inside, right? Where your brain is actually lighting up in very similar ways during meditation and being near the water. So I think it would be helpful to understand, just in sort of layman terms, we don't need to get too deep on that, but just, no pun intended, well, maybe a little pun intended. What is happening in our brain when we're near, in, on, or underwater? I mean, literally, neurocascade of chemicals. And talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, so to understand Blue Mind and the science, the first part is what water precludes or takes away. So when you're around the water, the water doesn't like these things. So that's one of the things. When you're at the water, the auditory input is simplified because the sound of the water sort of dominates and masks all the noise of life. Visually, the water is simplified. It's not billboards and screens and words and incoming stimulating imagery. It's relatively simple. Generally, you need to check your technology on the land before you get in the water. Whether it's your bathtub or it's an ocean or a lake or a pool. So water helps us take away the noise. And then the water gives us so much. It gives us this feeling of being held. It gives us serenity. It helps. What we see is your heart rate starts to slow. Your breathing rate starts to slow. You switch into a different mind state that we refer to as Blue Mind, but has a biological component. And literally, your body is preparing for the possibility of submergence. And we have a mammalian dive reflex that's just part of us. Whether you have never heard of it or not, it's part of you because you are a mammal. And so your body is preparing for that water immersion. And you can't breathe underwater, so it has to do things differently. So whether you're just sitting there by the side of the pool or looking at a sunset over the ocean, water is sending you a signal. So it's taking away the noise and the distraction. It's giving you this sort of soothing imagery and sounds, and then is preparing you for the encounter with water. And so all of that together shifts us from what we refer to as red mind, which is sort of the distracted, anxious fight or flight response, which is very useful, but eventually will burn you out. But shifts us from red mind to blue mind. The water does that. It's that mildly meditative state. And so all of the studies of meditation and mindfulness on land are applicable here. And you mentioned Oliver Sacks. All of his research on your brain on music is applicable here because water is music too. The sound of the ocean has a rhythm. The sound of a river is a song. And so connecting the dots on these realms of research in meditation and music and bringing what we know to bear on the water conversation, I think is part of the work that we've been doing. And then you get a whole new wave of researchers looking at specifically what does water do to our brains? What does it do to our bodies? What does it do to our nervous systems? And the results are consistent. It's good. It's all good stuff. It's some of the most healing modes that we can have access to, whether it's floating in a float tank, taking a whitewater rafting trip, or just sitting at the edge of the water fishing or contemplating the ripples. It's really some of the most healing activities that are available, or sitting in your bathtub for that matter.
Right. Edgar Cayce said that sound would be the medicine of the future. And I think that's something we often overlook when we're having the water conversation, right? Because there are people out there who would be afraid to jump into the ocean and all the little things that are down there, right? But it doesn't require that of you. I mean, there are really some simple ways to get the benefits of water. And I know when I lived near the Gulf of Mexico, in Florida, in a condo, that's the thing I miss the most, is the sound of the water. Every night I would listen, it would just lull me to sleep, which is why these, noise machines that mimic water sounds, right, are so popular. I really find the research to just be absolutely fascinating. And I know you've called yourself Captain Obvious, many times in my presence, like, hey, come on, we all know this, right? Like, we go to the water for romance. We go to the water to de-stress after a long day at work. We go to the water to, whether it's just a creek or the bathtub or the shower or having a fountain in your house, there's lots of ways to access that. And we have come through universally, and I hate to use the word unprecedented again, but it is unprecedented this time. And we've got chronic stress, and we've got anxiety, and now we have, and a lot of red mind activities that you mentioned can be really helpful, especially if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, perhaps. But now we've sort of entered, I think, I'm just guessing, this sort of gray mind state of just lethargy, which seems to me would be even worse than a red mind state. Have you found that to be true in the work that you're doing and the things you're seeing?
Yeah, so I would say let's go back a few years before the word pandemic was, the most common word spoken.
Right.
And the American Psychological Association had identified an outbreak of anxiety and stress that at record levels already, due to economic factors and uncertainty about the future and environmental fears and technology and young people and politics. All of that was making us very red-minded, and the concept of burnout was being elevated clinically as considered a disorder and a serious societal problem. And then this pandemic happens, and things just went off the chart. I mean, literally. And so now we hear about, wow, it's just if you're paying attention to what what's going on with our first responders, with our frontline medical
Right.
practitioners, with our teachers, with our children. It's kind of overwhelming. So they've moved from red mind into this gray mind burnout mode, the lethargy or the disconnect. And we really need solutions. And not to put too much on the water or claim that it's a silver bullet to anything, but it's certainly one of the most powerful tools in your toolkit, and it's vastly underutilized and certainly underprescribed. And the cool thing is that I can prescribe it to you, you can prescribe it to me, we can prescribe it to anyone. There is no downside to practicing Blue Mind. If it becomes mildly addictive, that's a good thing. You cannot overdo it, and you can't really do it wrong. So it is neurochemically powerful, is a good replacement for a bunch of things people are self-prescribing that are destructive, that might calm them down, but actually mess them up and then maybe make life harder in the process.
Yeah.
People have self-prescribed a lot of stuff this last couple of years, and it hasn't all been good. But this is something that is good. And so, in the face of the current circumstances, which are global, touch everybody. Nobody is untouched, but the very widespread feeling of uncertainty and loss, I think, is what's underlying it. And we've all lost something or someone over the recent past, and some have lost everything. And that place of not knowing what the future holds, of really being sad and grieving and mourning the loss of a dream, the loss of a spouse or a parent, the loss of a career, the loss of a home, the loss of what you thought your future was going to be. It's hard stuff, and the water can help you. I promise that if you start practicing Blue Mind daily and weekly, it can help you, and it will. And we see that among the people who are hurting the most. We see that Blue Mind helps them the most. But even if you're just in a little bit of pain over all this, it can help you too. So that's the message, really, is get to your water, and whatever that makes sense, however that makes sense. You mentioned some people have a fear of water. That's okay. My mom, lifelong fear of water, but she loves to look at it and listen to it, and it soothes her when she's feeling down. She doesn't want to be in it. She doesn't want it to touch her face.
Right.
Really does not want that. Right. Very seriously, please, does not want it. And but she loves to look at it, and she loves to listen to it. So find your comfort zone and start there, I would say. Yeah.
Jay, that's beautifully spoken as always. And I can feel your heart when you say those things, which has always, kept me connected to this work. And it's a reminder too of, all the hard that's come. This is a simple step to just embrace this idea, right? I think we tend to think that we've got to do these really hard, big, magnanimous things in order to make things right or to heal. But that's like meditating. Some people would be like, I can't shut my monkey mind off for 20 minutes. Are you kidding? But that simple idea of, immersing yourself in a bathtub, or walking in the rain, right? Or listening to a babbling brook, or the myriad ways that we can get around water that with little effort from ourselves, our brain will do the work of calming us and relaxing us and getting us to a state. I just really think that is information that everyone should have. So, what'd you say, 8 billion and growing? So, 7.5 billion to go. Keep at it, keep going, my brother. It's great. I love that you continue to have these conversations and to help people with this information. This common knowledge, quest that you're on. I think that's just such a unique approach, and connecting and protecting, I know, is at the heart of this Blue Mind conversation, and that means a lot of things, connecting and protecting. We know that human health means environmental health, and we could probably say environmental health means human health, but it's, two sides of the same coin. But talk a little teeny bit about this common knowledge idea, because I think that's really unique, and that other people can use this in things that they believe in as deeply as you believe in the power of water to help heal.
Yeah, early on in this Blue Mind work, we, meaning you, me, thought a lot about what the heck are we doing and how do we do this? Mm-hmm. And is it an org? Is it another nonprofit? Is it a for-profit? Is it a movement? Is it what is the approach? What is the model? And the thing that felt most right is, or was and is, to create common knowledge. And that pursuit, always kind of throwing, you throw the ball against the wall and it bounces back when you're pursuing this idea of common knowledge. And that just felt right. So what is common knowledge? Well, there's private knowledge, which is like, I know it and you don't know it. I'm not going to let you know it because I'm monetizing my private knowledge. And that happens in the world every day. You lock things down, you trademark them, and you hold them. Then there's shared knowledge, and that would be like, hey, I have this knowledge, it's on Wikipedia, it's over there, you can find it, so I shared it. But then common knowledge is the next level, and the level of collaboration jumps with each of these steps. Private knowledge, collaboration is very low. Shared knowledge, it goes up from 15% to 45%, but common knowledge, it jumps to 85%. And common knowledge means that you know what I know that you know what I know, and vice versa. So we're just starting from this place where we know what each other knows. And if that is true for the people you meet, the strangers you meet on the street, and your new teacher or your new business partner or your new next door neighbor, you start with this common knowledge, and that's a higher platform to jump off of. And so how do you get there? Well, you share wildly at every turn. You don't lock things behind legalese. You don't trademark them, copyright them, and block people. You share actively, but with reciprocity. So if you came to me and said, hey, I want to open a new taco stand, I'm going to call it Blue Mind Tacos. I just want to know if that's okay. Yes, it's okay. However, with that permission, you could say, comes responsibility. Please tell everybody who eats tacos at your taco stand what Blue Mind is all about. And then the taco stand owner says, that's a deal. I love that. So now you've got a taco stand sharing Blue Mind in a community that maybe needs it. And then so it goes on and on like that. And we have approached it that way. Mm-hmm. And there are literally thousands of businesses and organizations with Blue Mind in the name, and tens of thousands more with Blue Mind in their DNA. And so it's every day almost, there are more people coming into the circle, not through force, not because we have money to do it, not because we're spending money on advertising, because we're taking this common knowledge and circle building approach, which is different from most businesses and nonprofits. And so we remove the sharp elbows, we remove the need to ask permission, we remove the need to fundraise, really, and we can get a lot done with this very small, tiny, efficient group that says yes a lot. And so that is the approach. And there are reasons why it works in this case and would not work, say, if you're trying to build a business or you're trying to build a proper nonprofit organization. But in this case, it's the right approach. And at least it's a fun experiment, and we can decide, years from now if it was the right approach or not. So.
Well, one thing we know for sure is it is a tool in the toolkit. And we've always said that. It is something that everyone should use, and it's open to everyone, and it's not proprietary at any level, but that the understanding of this. So I really applaud that work and the tenacity with which you have approached making everybody you come in contact with aware of Blue Mind. It's just phenomenal. There are lots of options for people to get more information about this. The book, clearly. Yes. You also host a book club. I think you just finalized the 9th annual, if I am correct.
Yes,
book
we're in
club.
the middle of it. Yep.
You host an annual conference every year, a little bit of virtual stuff with COVID, but maybe that's going to ramp back up again, where you bring cognitive researchers and scientists and water lovers and artists and this eclectic mix of people to talk about neuroconservation and your brain on water. You spearhead the 100 Days of Blue Mind from Memorial Day to Labor Day, get people on social media to get near, in, on, or underwater and share their story. And you crowdsourced long before crowdsourcing was a thing. And in order to remain an independent scientist and not influenced. So that work can be found on patreon.com/BlueMind. And of course, wallacejnichols.org. Is there anything else that, I know there's lots we need to know. Oh, what we need to know is #BlueMind.
Yes. #BlueMind if you want to participate in the conversation and follow what other people are up to. I have an announcement that I've been holding for this moment that nobody's heard this before, literally, until right now.
Oh, wow.
July 22nd will be known as World Blue Mind Day. And it's a very special date, July 22nd, for a lot of reasons that I won't go into in terms of the number itself. And it's the 203rd day of the year. And it's, anyway, it's a special day. And coming up this July. So, and you can celebrate Blue Mind however you like. If you want to make it very personal and private and quiet, please do that. If your organization or business is connected to water, please celebrate it in whatever way advances your goals. But forevermore, July 22nd is World Blue Mind Day. And we're looking forward to the first one this year. So,
wow. Wow. Leave it to you to blow me away, right? Like, did you just save that special?
I knew you would like, yes.
I love it.
I've
It's
been
so
holding that
great.
back.
World Blue Mind Day. Like, make me verklempt here. What?
It has not even been tweeted yet. So,
wow. Well, you heard it here first. Thank you
Yes.
for sharing that. That's really exciting. And it's just a testament to your ongoing work in this space. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. And I hope that you continue to get all the support that you need to grow this conversation and to help people and this planet, because that's ultimately what you're doing. So thank you so much, Jay.
Well,
so good to see you.
Yeah, so good to chat.
Yeah. And thanks for making that announcement here. We
You bet.
appreciate it. World Blue Mind Day, folks. You heard it here. I love it. Thank you. What a great conversation to have today. And to hear the announcement of World Blue Mind Day is just spectacular. We've all experienced a lot of loss, as Dr. Nichols referenced, over the last couple of years, and stress is at an all-time high. It's interesting to note that the effects of stress were as well known in Mr. Casey's time as they are today. And he would often prescribe diet, exercise, and getting outside. I think he made that common knowledge, as there are over 100 readings that reference exposure to sun, sea, sand, pines, or the woods. So nature is one of the most healing forces in the world. Casey said, the body needs to get close to nature, with nature's cures, as will be found in sand, sunshine, water, and woods. So I think today we should take Mr. Casey's advice and get outside near nature, and we should add to that Dr. Nichols' advice to get near the water. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thank you.